Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar. I see we got people piling in. Jimmy, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. For those of you who've been following me know I'm in Disney World right now, which feels like the seventh time this year I've been down here, soaking in the sun, enjoying the weather, spending way too much money, eating way too much food as you would when you go to Disney World, but all is good, my friend. How's things going up on your end?
Good. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying those $16 churros.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's funny this you hear all this news about how the market's terrible and how the economy's terrible and how the tariffs are ruining everything. And I'm telling you, man, I've been going to Disney World for the last 10 years. It still feels like the world's still, spinning. I mean, people are still enjoying themselves. So it's good to see. It's good to get out of that sort of bubble, if you will.
Speaking of the market, I'd love if people can drop in the chat where they're dialing in from and how they would describe the market using one word.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to see some of the response. Yep. Competitive. We've been seeing that, Nancy, for a while.
Anemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's a great word, Eric. I saw Eric drop in the chat right now, nervous. We're gonna Sammy saying Boston's still popping. Boston is always popping, Sammy. In today's session, I think what's gonna be really fun for us, Andrew, is between my stuff and your stuff, I think we're gonna share some ideas to help kind of overcome some of the sentiment and help people, make better, more informed decisions and how to sort of identify some of the hand raisers. So, for those of you who are feeling like everything is kind of stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, there is a way to break through that cycle. And I'm excited about sharing that. But before we do any of that, real quick, we got a ton of content to cover with you today. Things are going to help you get more appointments. Things are going to help you nurture your database. Things are going to help you stay busy through the late spring and early summer markets. But Andrew, I know you have a huge announcement that we're breaking right now on this live webinar, something you've been working on for a long time. I would love for you to share with everyone who's tuning in, our communities who are tuning in right now, just a little bit about what you're about to launch and how they can participate.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jimmy. Yeah, so shameless plug here. Today I am announcing the Playmakers podcast. So, what is one thing this industry needs more of? Podcasts, of course. No, jokes aside, over the past few weeks, I've had the opportunity to meet with some of the biggest playmakers in real estate. These are C-suite executives from the biggest brokerages, from the national portals, and it's very clear to me that there is a lot changing in the industry right now. And a lot of these conversations shaping this change are happening behind closed doors. And I want to make sure that everyone on this call, every one of my followers has an opportunity to sit in for those conversations, see what is changing in the industry, and build a strategy around it. So we have an incredible lineup of C suite executives who are coming to the table to interview with me. I'll be asking the tough questions. It'll be fair and balanced interviews, but there's gonna be some tough questions in there as well. And so, if you are interested in being the first to know when these episodes drop, actually, I'm gonna be recording these interviews live and then dropping them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you want
Mhm.
to sit in for these live conversations even before they drop, then we'd love to have you as a part of that. And you can scan this QR code, follow me on Instagram. That's where a lot of this content and these invitations are going to drop. So thanks for
Yep.
allowing me to do that shameless plug. But I think it's never
Keep
been
that
more important for people to be in the loop.
pull that QR code up just a little bit bigger for everybody. And if we got Seth and Alice on the team, if we could drop a link into that, if anyone's struggling with scanning the QR code, drop a link directly into the chat for that. You know what's actually so perfect about this, and congrats on launching it. What's so perfect about this, Andrew, is that one of the things that I have done as a cheat code for developing strategy and helping my community and my customers navigate whatever market's coming is I listen to earnings calls from Open Door, from Zillow, from Redfin right before Redfin was acquired, from all the major players to understand how they see the world. And what's interesting is that the analysts ask great questions related to the financial outlook. And I think what you're applying now is tapping into the strategic outlook. And I could tell you right now, if you were paying attention to those earnings calls in 22 or even late 21, you would have already known the market was shifting way before, most articles written on most real estate publications were shared. The CEOs were thinking about that. That's their job to think 3, 4, 5 quarters ahead. And so I love the fact that you're bringing a real estate twist to this, and love the name. And I'm hoping people subscribe to this thing. And I know I'll be tuning in, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think the first few episodes are going to be killer. We have the CEO of a $1 billion company whose app is already installed on your phone. We have an industry operator who was recently named the #1 most powerful person in real estate. And we have a real estate icon whose latest book became a #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller. So we're not messing around here. We have great guests, and I'm excited to share that all with you. But yeah, we have a lot to cover today, so I want to pass the mic on to Jimmy, because we have a lot of really great content here that's going to help you win more listings in this tough market. I saw somebody here say 145
Hmm.
days on market
Oh
in her
yeah.
market, Mandy.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah, so let's see if we can follow the market and get some
that's
more
exactly
listings here.
right. And you guys should all be able to see my screen, and you should be able to hear me okay. So let me set up the first one. I'll cover the next 20-25 minutes here. What I think is likely the biggest opportunity hiding in plain sight. And I want to kind of give some context around this, because as Andrew mentioned, we're seeing this sort of really shift in the market, where the market is in many ways returning to a more balanced market. Our friends David Childers would call it a healthy market at KCM. It may not feel healthy to you. It may feel like a market where you are like we were expecting, many of us, Andrew, we were expecting that by the time that April came around, May came around, we'd be in the high fives. We'd be at probably a 5 million, home sold run rate, that, the market would sort of be booming. And that is true in some areas where we're seeing some good activity. But for many of you in the call right now, I saw the words that I see often, which is nervous, anxious, stressful, slow, inconsistent. And so what I think is happening, if I'm listening to this call right now, Andrew, I've been to 50 cities over the last 18 months. I've flown over like 130 flights. So I've got some miles under me in the last 2 years here. And when I go into a market, what I can tell you is there is this start stop mentality that is becoming insanely difficult, not only from a P&L perspective, but from a
Mm-hmm.
mentality perspective. The
Yep.
stress and the anxiety of like, is the treasury yield going to go up 125 basis points today? Am I going to have buyers who I have on the 1 yard line just pull back because of some external event? And so knowing all of this and doing all of this research, my mind goes to, okay, what's the play? If the market is the market and the market's not going to change materially over the next 18 months, it's going to be a lot of this sort of start and stop. What's the strategy? And so doing the research, thinking creatively about that, I'm going to present to you what I think the biggest opportunity is today and how you could take advantage of it. Let's start with some stats. 6% of homeowners over the age of 60 are planning on selling their home in 2025. Now, to put that into perspective, that represents 53% of all sales going into this year. They refer to this, Andrew, as the Silver Tsunami. In America today, we have over 10,000 people a day turning 60. And so this cohort of customers represents the majority of business that comes on the list side today. Yet, here's the problem. When I look at the marketing strategies that most agents deploy to attract listings, they are generic, they are overly aggressive, and overly salesy. Let me give you an example of this. If you're writing things like, now's never been a better time to sell, find out what your home value is worth right now, just sold over X the list price, like those are all okay messages. But if you've owned a house for 35 years, do you care about selling that house in 3 days? Do you want to sell it super quickly, or do you want to make the right decision? And so much of marketing and so much of messaging and so much of getting people to raise their hand is about understanding the consumer psychology so that you can put the right message in front of the right people. Now, let's put this in perspective. Here's why I want you to think about adding the Silver Tsunami as a pillar to your business. In 21, we sold about 6.1 million houses, a little bit higher in some areas or some data points, but about 6.1 million houses. We're kind of on track, and I'm talking about resale here. We're kind of on track between 4 to 4.2 million houses right now. If you don't have a Silver Tsunami strategy, you take that already kind of depressed market and you cut that market in half. And I think it's really hard to be successful when you're playing the game with one arm tied behind your back. And my argument and my strategy for you today, because at Listing Leads, we've got the number one marketing system for attracting listings. And one thing I'm pushing all of our members to now is like, we got to have a strategy for the Silver Tsunami. Our marketing, our messaging, our campaigns have got to be for the Silver Tsunami. So where do we start? Where do we begin? It starts with understanding some of the facts about the Silver Tsunami. So first off, there are 73 million boomers in the US. They have a ridiculously high home ownership rate. Over 80% own a home. 41% of them own that home free and clear, which is an important data point for us to understand. If they were a publicly traded company, they would be the largest market cap company in the US stock market, right, with $18 trillion in home value. And this is really interesting, and I want you to pay attention to this, because I'll come back to this a little bit later. The median age of a home owned by a homeowner in the Silver Tsunami is 45 years. This is important. So we're gathering some of the facts about these individuals. So what are the things that we see that are not working for these individuals? Well, this is a typical message we'll see. Hey, you waited long enough. Right now, you're sitting on a biggest opportunity of your life, and every day you're leaving money on the table. Buyers are ready. They want to pay cash. No inspections, no drama. Why drag this out? We can, pick up the phone, make a phone call. Let's go. Pushy, aggressive, salesy. Sell your home now. Get a cash offer. Instantaneous valuations. And the problem is that we're missing a really important point. In my in this case, tens of hours of research just digging into the Silver Tsunami, both in marketing campaigns from like companies like ARP, what they do to attract this cohort of customers, but also looking at the marketing. These individuals who are part of the Silver Tsunami care less about having some big win, and they care a lot more about avoiding a mistake and making a decision they're going to regret. So we don't want to have this sort of aspirational message about take advantage of this market right now. It's never been hotter. We want to sort of help take this consumer through a process that helps them make an informed decision so they have confidence. And in order to do that, this is how I want you to visualize our approach, which is you've got the consumer's goals, the Silver Tsunami's goals. What are they trying to achieve? They're trying to move closer to family. And actually in the chat right now, let me know, if you were to describe the goals of a homeowner that is part of the Silver Tsunami, what are they trying to achieve in their sale? Many of you have already worked with this cohort of customers, right? Great point, Josh. Peace. They're looking for a smooth transaction. Angie, fantastic point. Cash to live on, right? Financial freedom. They're looking to downsize, move closer to family, better healthcare, ease of the transaction. And let me talk about retirement for 1 second. I can tell you right now, I know plenty of 60 and 70 and even early 80-year-olds who do not look at this as like I ride into the sunset. And so a mistake that, call it, people in my generation make, I'm what they refer to as an elder millennial, or actually a geriatric millennial. We think of someone who's 60 as my generation would be like, oh, they must be thinking about retirement. Guess what? That is categorically untrue. They see this as they want to make they're excited about the next transition in their life, and they're trying to make a smart decision. Absolutely right, Diane. Closer to grandchildren, right? And some of them are still very much going to be working. And Jasmine, you're right. Convenience, right? Less maintenance, maximizing the value. All of this is true. So what are the goals they have? That's the number one. Let's do like a marketing jam session right now. What are the goals the consumer has? And then what are the barriers that are preventing them from achieving those goals? And let me give you the first campaign, because we put together at Listing Leads, we put together the Silver Tsunami blueprint that we're releasing to all of our members. And I'm going to give, by the way, at the end of today's session, I'm going to give everyone a QR code you can scan to get access to this. But I'm going to break down a few of the campaigns just to give you some perspective. The first one is the seller seminar invitation. Now, I was in a room, Andrew, you and I do a ton of these masterminds. I was in a room with Tom Ferry, and I think we were in Austin, Texas, and we had about 10 groups of agents come through. And actually, let me just stop sharing my screen because I want to set this up properly for you. Um, we had like 10 groups of agents come through. And in those groups of agents, we asked the question, like, what's the number one source of business that you're getting for attracting listings? And there was a woman named Maureen Folan, known as the Queen of Queens. I'll never forget it. She's like, I get the vast majority of my sellers from seller seminars. This is a couple of years ago, first time I've ever heard of this concept, seller seminars. And she explained that she sends out mailers to homeowners in her area, inviting them to participate in a seminar to learn about selling. And what was so fascinating about it, she goes, the first one I did, you know what everybody asked me about? Because, she prepared for hours. Like she had a whole agenda, 10 different topics. The first thing everyone asked about, Andrew, was taxes. Because if you think about it, right? Like, think about the fees associated with selling your house. You have your real estate commission. You have some title transfer taxes. You've got like, other fees that are part of the transaction. Maybe some repairs you have to make. But you know what the biggest one is usually? Is the 15% capital gains tax, right? That you may have to pay on your proceeds from the sale of the home.
Well, and
Uh,
maybe more than 15%. And I think especially when there's a new administration, I think a lot of people have uncertainty. They want somebody to come in and demystify it for them.
100%. And I was talking to my mom, who is in the Silver Tsunami. Yeah, some of you are some 23%, 25%, depends on what state you're in. I mean, it's taxes. It's complicated. And so I was talking to my mom. I'm like, hey, because she's in the Silver Tsunami. She owns her house free and clear. She has, over $1 million in equity in her property. I said, hey, when you sell your house, how much are you going to pay in capital gains tax? She goes, Jimmy, I'm not paying any capital gains tax. I'm over 55. And what's interesting is that was true in the Bill Clinton era in the mid 90s, but the law changed in 97. And I'm like, hey mom, I got some bad news. Like you're gonna pay some capital gains tax. He said, well, what if I roll it into another property? I'm like, oh, like a 1031 exchange. Sorry, like that's probably not gonna like. And listen, I was giving my mom tax advice that I found on ChatGPT. So let's call it what it is here. She probably should talk to someone who's an expert. But the reason I share that is because here's the campaign that I would want you to run. Because seller seminars are a great way to get in front of Silver Tsunami. It's what's the worst surprise? What's one of the worst surprises when selling your home? Finding out too late that you might owe a big tax bill. It happens more often than people realize, but the right advice, it's almost always avoidable, which is why we're hosting a seller seminar Andrew, I would partner with a local tax expert. Real estate agents should not be giving tax advice. They are not tax attorneys or tax experts. They should partner with a tax expert. If you're thinking of selling your home, this could be 1 hour that can give you the confidence and help you save tens of thousands of dollars. To save your seat, call or text. PS, seats tend to go quickly. Our last seminar had X, filled within a few days. PPS, you can't make it. It's okay. We'll make sure you don't miss out on this information.
Jimmy,
Now, yeah, go ahead.
I
Yeah, go
think
ahead, Andrew.
there's two reasons why I love this. I mean, first off, it's what I call a pattern interrupter, right?
Hmm.
Because these people are used to getting just listed, just sold, just all of this spam from real estate agents. And I
Hmm.
think coming at it with a new angle with regards to a tax bill is a really nice pattern interruption. And then also, yes, you want to have a CPA in the room, not only for limiting your liability, but also because that is an important lead source for you. So it's a great excuse to
Yeah,
establish that relationship.
100% right. And I think, and so here's my takeaway. I've seen agents all across the country do seller seminars and get a ton of business from it. It's a great lead pillar. But the invitation that they send to invite people to it is come to our seller seminar. You're going to learn about A, B, and C. There's no, Andrew, in marketing, you've got to raise the stakes. And that's an important concept. I want you to raise the stakes and make this feel like it really matters right now. And so if they're thinking about selling, you can notice I use language like, hey, finding out too late, leveraging that kind of psychology that, hey, they don't want to have a regret when they do this. Now, notice the tone of this is that I'm going right up into the edge of being like direct and trying to be persuasive, but I'm not being pushy. And that's an important thing when you're developing campaigns for the Silver Tsunami is, yeah, you want to raise the stakes. You want to get their attention. You want to, get them to actually read the content you're putting out there, but don't cross that line where you're like, if you don't do this, you'll never have a chance again. Notice how we have that PPS. Hey, if you can't make it, still reach out. We'll make sure you get all the information. And the framework I want you to use as we think about this, Andrew, the framework I want you to use is instead of that kind of like pushy aggressive, it is inform. And I would write this down, everybody. It's inform, educate, guide. And that is a important process when you think about this idea is like, how do I inform them of something that matters is important? How do I educate them on like, hey, what you're going to learn, and then guide them to taking the next step. Now, Robert dropped in a comment here, which is, I could never do a seller seminar. It's not my wheelhouse. Robert, this is such a great question and sort of observation. You can totally do this as a one-to-one. So as an example, you might offer it as a free value add to say, if you'd like to jump on a call, right? With me and my tax attorney, we could schedule a Zoom meeting or one-on-one phone call. So, or you could do it as a Facebook Live. But if you're not presenting in front of an audience, as you said, Robert, it's not in your wheelhouse, do it as a one-to-one. Andrew, what are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts are that it's not surprising to me that someone would have stage fright in leading a webinar, but I just want to break down what leading a webinar could look like in this case. It could mean that you are organizing, a seminar. You could be organizing a seminar, right?
Yeah.
If you're not interested in going up in front of a room of people and talking on a microphone for a half an hour, you don't need to do any of that. You can just organize the seminar. You can get the right experts in the room and you can introduce them. And you're still going to be generating value. You're still going to be establishing a relationship with the people in the room. So, if it's not your cup of tea to, be doing a lot of public speaking, there's a way to kind of sidestep that.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I got some thoughts as it relates to where to host these. Let me just answer one question that came in earlier. What's the difference between inform and educate? Inform is the headline. It's this just happened, or you should know about this thing. Educate is telling them why it's important or how it impacts them. So the inform part of that formula is going to be, hey, letting you know this thing just happened. The educate is explaining to them why it's going to impact them. And the guide is, okay, now that I have this information, what is the next step I need to take? So coming back to the question, Andrew, I want to get your reaction to this. Jason Cassidy is saying, I'd like to organize a seminar and have Jimmy and Andrew speak at it. Andrew and I are for hire. If you want to do a seller seminar, we will MC it for you. So Andrew, question, where would you host a seller seminar? Great question. Capitol Grill, your office, somewhere in between, where does your head go?
I mean, my head immediately goes to free real estate. And so I would hit up my attorney or my accountant somewhere that has, a really nice space, may even be willing to prepare some refreshments or order some food, or something that feels kind of unique, right? Maybe it's at a really incredible listing. But I think if you think outside the box here, it won't cost you a lot and it won't be high friction.
Yeah, it's so great about that. Couple things I would look for. And again, like Michael, senior community centers, sure, absolutely. But keep in mind, like the Silver Tsunami is people over the age of 60 who are planning on selling. So these individuals not necessarily living in a senior community. My thought is it's all about convenience. Convenience is the most important thing here, which is where are these individuals already, congregating around? And so yeah, if you have it at the Capitol Grill, you're gonna get people showing up wanting a free steak. I mean, like in this market, let's keep your like costs low and your profits high. So I'm not a huge fan unless you have a higher end luxury market. I'm not a huge fan of giving people, free, well done filet mignon at the Capitol Grill. No thanks. I would much rather look to having an environment where there's already a lot of foot traffic, there's a lot of people coming through. And that, by the way, that might be a retail location. That might be like you just contact a retail location and partner there. That would be my thoughts. Steve brings up a good point. You can do it on Facebook Live. You can do it on a Zoom call. These are stepping stones, and you could do it on a one-to-one. If the live event is the end goal, then some of the first small steps could definitely be some of the virtual stuff as well. All right, so let's keep building on this, Andrew. I asked the question earlier. I asked the question earlier, which is what was the and I asked everyone to remember this point. I want to see if you guys were paying attention. What was the median age of a home owned by a homeowner and the Silver Tsunami? Drop it in the chat right now. All right, you guys are paying attention. 100 bonus points from Jimmy here. 45, 45, 45. Yeah, the correct answer is 45 years, right? That's the median age, meaning they may have bought the house 20 years ago, but they bought a 25-year-old house 20 years ago, as an example. So here's the thing. Remember what we talked about earlier, Andrew? We talked about goals and barriers. So when we get into the mind of the consumer for a second, and we say to ourselves, and I'll pull the campaign up in a second, we say to ourselves this: what is the barrier if someone's owned the house for 45 years? And Andrew, you're going to respond to this, but I want to see people in the chat as well. What is, if you own the house for 25 years, but the home's 45 years old and you want to sell it, what's like the thing that might be preventing you from taking that next step? That thing that feels like it's like, overwhelming to you.
You asking me first?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the unknown unknowns, right? It's the perception that there is so much complexity here, that you want somebody to demystify it for you. I mean, there's also a lot of emotional attachment, right? This isn't an asset. This isn't just, a piece of real estate. This is your memories. It's it's a part of your identity. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why a pushy approach is not the right approach here.
Well, even digging a little bit deeper in that, Andrew, specifically around all of that is true, and specifically around the house. What's their concerns about selling the house?
Oh, getting it ready for market.
Getting it ready for the market, which means repairs, which means cash going out the door, which means a complicated process. And so, what we're going to do to solve that problem, I'll pull up the example for you here. Campaign number 2, I got 3 for you, is called the Magic Buyer Letter with a Silver Tsunami twist. And so this campaign is specifically designed to say, listen, Magic Buyer Letter, my buddy Trey, shout out to Trey, sent the Magic Buyer Letter out, 50 letters, 2 listings. Tiffany Vasquez, 85 letters, 5 listings. The Magic Buyer Letter is taking a qualified buyer, identifying off-market listings, calling or mailing, letting off-market listings know you've got a buyer for them, creates a conversation, creates an appointment, leads to a listing. But the reason we modified this, and I want you to pay very close attention to the language here, is we wanted to address the barrier that's in the mind of the seller. So I just spoke to my clients, Andrew and Brooke, who are hoping to find a home in your neighborhood. I promised them I would do everything I can to help them find a new home, which is why I'm reaching out. Adam and Brooke aren't looking for a new construction or a polished turnkey home. You bought a home in a great area. Again, they have pride. This is legacy to them. Compliment them, which is why they're comfortable, even excited about making upgrades and handling repairs if needed. So what we just did is we destroyed the objection in the mind of the consumer. They're thinking to themselves, I got to fix a damn roof. What about this carpet from the 70s? What about all this sort of landscaping I got to do? If you tell them you've got a buyer who's looking to make a move in their area and they're totally okay and comfortable basically making repairs, you know what it's going to do? It's going to lead to a conversation. And so the faster you can break down that barrier, the more conversations you can have. Now, let me end with one last campaign here for you. And I'm going to give everybody access to where they can get access to the Silver Tsunami blueprint that we're releasing. Last campaign, Andrew, before I pass the mic back to you. And this one actually is a campaign that I love, which we talked about earlier. We developed this recently, which is designed around design. And by the way, Tammy, real quick, yeah, Charlie King, my boy Charlie King kills it with Magic Buyer Letters. Yeah, if you need to have a buyer, and like at Listing Leads, listen, Andrew will talk about how to get buyers. You can get buyers really easily in this market. We don't have time to talk about that today. Well, that's going to be for another webinar. But if you're struggling to get buyers, like Andrew hopefully can share some insight on this as well. We can get you buyers. You should not send this letter. Let me come back for a second. Like rule number one is don't lie in marketing, right? Andrew, like if you don't have a buyer, don't send this. But I trust me, you can get buyers. And there's a way we can do that. So Andrew, let me end with this. Uh, One of the big things that we know is that when people move, one of the most important things is the cost of living after they move. And so the silver tsunami is asset rich and cash flow concerned. Write that down. They are asset rich and cash flow concerned. They may have no mortgage, like 41%. They might have a 401k and $2 or $3 million, but they are concerned about outliving their retirement. Exactly, Leah. 51% of them are concerned about outliving the retirement. So the next move, which is typically within 20 to 50 miles of their current residence, the number one concern is what is going to be my cost of living? So what I want you to do is use this prospecting script, which is, hey, Andrew, I know you're not expecting this, but I thought you'd find this interesting. I just helped one of my clients buy and sell a house, and their housing costs dropped $2,300 a month. Out of curiosity, if you were to make a move, what would you want your all-in monthly costs to stay under? And so what I'm doing in this case is I'm not saying, would you like to sell your house? I'm not saying, would you like to find out what your home value is? I'm not saying, would you like me to send you a list of homes? I'm saying, I just helped someone sell their house and buy a new house. And we figured out what their monthly cost went from A to B. And now I'm just using that as a conversation starter. And I'm gonna give you some marketing advice that is gonna help you improve every email, every Facebook ad, every video, every direct mail post. Super important. I write this down. Make the first step a small step. Make the first step a small step. If you can get the consumer to say, take that first step, you're going to have a conversation. That conversation goes to an appointment. That appointment becomes a customer. Always make the first step a small step. So, Andrew, as we wrap here, and I pass the mic back to you because I know you got a lot to cover today. Everyone, pull out your phones. We'll drop a link in the chat as well. But if you're in the room right now, by the way, just out of curiosity in the chat, how many of you just want me to do all of your marketing for you? I mean, like the research, the writing, the design, just say the chat, right? Like, okay. How many of you just like want me to do this for you? Okay. For those of you saying yes, 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 yes. I mean, like, listen, we spend 30, 40 hours a week doing the research just to publish a plan. If I were to give you a plan, if I were to give you the marketing system, that can help you get listings, exactly what to send, exactly when to send it, exactly who to send it to, would you do it? That's my question. I mean, like, it's got to be an emphatic yes. Okay, so for everyone who's saying like absolutely yes, all I want to do is execute, Jimmy. Here's what you can do. Go to listingleads.com. You can scan this QR code. You're going to get, it's $139 a month. Okay, so it's $139 a month. Everybody on this call is going to get a free trial. Scan the QR code. You're going to get a free trial. Create your account. We'll invite you to a training next week. They'll just train you how to use our listing leads marketing system. But in the listing leads marketing system, you're also going to get the Silver Tsunami blueprint. So every campaign I cover today, including 6 additional campaigns designed to help you take advantage of the 53% of the market that's going to be selling. And I know we get a bunch of listing leads customers members in today's chat, so you guys can drop your feedback in there as well. You can sign up, scan the QR code. You will not be billed until day 8. I'm going to give you 7 days completely free. Try it out. But if you need a marketing system that does the work for you and all you want to do is execute, that's what we built. And hopefully today was incredibly helpful, giving you some insight in terms of how we think at Listing Leads and how we're helping our members generate more listings. And on that note, I'm going to pass the mic back to Andrew because he's got a ton of information to cover with you guys to help you increase your conversion. Andrew, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, we have a lot of our customers who have signed up for listing leads and get great results. It's probably the fastest way that you can shake the tree and get more opportunities out of your database. But it pairs really nicely with some of the strategies I want to talk about today because ultimately, success starts with a signal. And I'm going to say it one more time. Success starts with a signal. And Jamie has some really great ways to get that signal, right? The text that you just saw on the screen, great way to get signal if somebody's serious without being a pushy salesperson. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So success starts with a signal. I'm going to, kind of segue from the attract more leads piece of it into how you can nurture those leads and how you can convert them with more precision and a higher conversion rate. And it's really a 3-step formula. I want to cover these 3 areas today. This is specifically for the Silver Tsunami, right? What Jimmy was talking about earlier in terms of not being pushy, not being high urgency, it's about building trust, right? It's also about removing uncertainty. And that's something that I'm going to give you some tactics on as well. And then finally, how you can position yourself as an expert. This is going to fold nicely into the whole creating a seminar piece. But if seminars aren't your thing, or if you want to bolster that strategy, I'll give you a few other tactics as well. So first off, building trust. I just want to break down kind of a diagram that I came up with to really showcase how I'm hearing you are treating your business today, right? I talk to a lot of agents, and oftentimes, especially before you have the conversation with a prospect, there is a minimal amount of effort into nurturing your contacts, right? And so you connect with a prospect, you do a little bit of work, and then there's the listing presentation or the buyer presentation. And then of course the work ramps from there. You have to show properties, you have to get a home ready for sale. But given the tight market and given the post NAR settlement, what a lot of agents and teams are doing looks a lot more like this, which is to say there's a minimal amount of effort going into lead gen or lead nurture. And then once you get to the appointment, there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into showing up to that appointment, increasing your odds, and really wowing your prospect. And then from there, the work ramps from there. I want to convince you that it should look more like this, right? It shouldn't be this intense spike in activity. The difference here is I'm advocating for a lot of that value to happen earlier on, because then you're going to have a better chance when you get to the closing table. And so what I want to convince you of is that proving your value early and consistently is going to build that trust. It's going to make it easier to have a closing conversation with a prospect. It's going to make the conversation a lot smoother, and it's going to get you higher conversion. Now, what I'm not advocating for is that you don't put time into your listing presentation or your buyer consult, right? You still need to do the work there. But if you can front load some of that effort, or at least create the systems or automations, you're going to find that you're going to get a higher conversion rate. So what does this look like? I think for a lot of agents, the CMA is one of the ways to do this, right? You've heard CMA a day. It certainly helps if you can bring clarity to a very complicated and stressful process, right? What is my home worth, right? A CMA a day might explain that. If you can send out a CMA to the folks in your database. And I think my camera just turned off. Let me just get this going. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So back to the program here. So CMA day, certainly one way to do it, but I think there's a more sophisticated approach, and that is keeping your clients up to date with the market activity, right? I've preached before the importance of a home value alert. That's one way to do it. There are a lot of vendors that offer home value alerts. And what's nice about a home value alert is it doesn't just tell you what your home is worth, because I think that is table stakes these days and your consumers are getting it with or without you. But it's also about sharing the recent comps and the recent market activity data. So I know Jason's on the call. Here's a screenshot from Jason's home value alert with RealScout. There's a lot of tools that will help you do this effectively, and it's one way to build that trust, right? Because having that consistency in your communication is going to keep you top of mind for the right reasons. Then it's about removing uncertainty. So I'm going to talk about something that we haven't really talked about before in a webinar, and that is how you can remove some uncertainty. Putting your home on the market, especially when you've lived in that home for decades, is pretty intimidating. And it's one thing to look at the comps, But let's face it, there aren't a lot of comps these days. And maybe the most recent comp in your neighborhood is from 6 months ago or a year ago, and it shouldn't be relied upon. One of the things you can do is reveal a real-time pulse on buyer demand data. This is what it looks like with RealScout. There are other tools out there that have some semblance of buyer demand. But what you're looking at here, these blue bars, is, my Silver Tsunami prospect thinks that her home is worth 900,000, but I can show her that a small reduction in price would capture 8% more of the buyers in the market. Now, everyone on this call can tell me about listing supply. You can tell me what the comps are in a neighborhood. You can tell me how many active listings are on the market in a particular neighborhood. But what you probably can't tell me is how many buyers are looking at various price points. And this is the level of sophistication you can bring to the table that's going to set you apart, and it's going to remove uncertainty for a seller. And then finally, it's about positioning yourself as the expert. Jimmy, I had a question for you, right? I mean, if you meet with another knowledge worker, another professional in your life, maybe your financial advisor, what are the types of things that they would bring to the table in like a quarterly review of your portfolio?
Well, I think they certainly, if you're meeting with a financial advisor, they're giving you a sense of sort of like the state of your assets, where your assets at right now, what the sort of, a good one will be telling you sort of like, okay, here's what happened, here's where we're at, and here's what we're going to do next.
That's
That's
right.
that's what the good ones do. The bad ones say, this is where we're at. And you're like, okay, well, what's plan B then? Where are we going?
Yeah, so there might be some version of scenario planning. They might have commentary on the market. And most importantly, they are not calling you to review this information when they want something from you or they want to sell you on something. They are doing this on a regular cadence. And these quarterly reviews is something I would recommend you do with maybe your top 50 Silver Tsunami prospects, right? This would be a portfolio review. It would be an opportunity to reach out to them on a regular basis and say, hey, it's been 6 months. I'd love to do a 6-month review of your portfolio and how you're thinking about your home and how you're thinking about the market. There's a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty about the market right now, given all that's happening in the macro economy. There's a lot of anxiety that homeowners have, and you might have an opportunity to demystify the process for them. All right. The final part of this puzzle has to do with something called a market activity alert. Now, market activity alerts are nice because it's not geared around the comps. It's not geared around what your home is worth. It's really about what's happening in the market. And there's some really interesting insights that you can deliver specifically around buyer demand that showcase where that buyer demand is concentrated. There's been a lot of movement over the years, right? We had the pandemic, we have a new administration, we have interest rates changing. And if you can start to reveal where buyer demand is concentrated, it's going to start to give clues as to where the market is going, if this is, a hot market, if it's a slower market, et cetera. And there's a lot of information that are packed into these market activity alerts, and it's just a great way to stay top of mind. I want to put it all together, right? Because you have these Silver Tsunami prospects, and really this applies to any prospect in your database. You have buyers in your database, you have sellers in your database, but most people are in between these buying and selling moments. And there's a real opportunity to stay top of mind with them and to put the whole thing on autopilot, right? We call it tree shaking at RealScout. And one of the things that we have released a couple of years ago, and a lot of people on this call are taking advantage of it, is auto nurture. And auto nurture, kind of like the listing leads, easy button where Jimmy does your marketing, we will do your nurture. And when you have prospects, when you have that signal, it's really important to keep yourself top of mind without having to do a lot of manual work that's going to fall through the cracks. So, these market activity alerts, the home value alerts, even listing alerts are made a lot easier with auto nurture. And ultimately, it's going to help you build more trust, create more transparency, which will remove uncertainty, and then position yourself as the expert. And so for the folks on this call that are not already on RealScout nurturing their database with our software, Would love to have one of our database consultants meet with you and talk about a strategy that works for your needs and your database. So if you scan this QR code, we're happy to put you in touch with one of our database consultants and put together a strategy that's going to generate more transactions in a tough market, in a stressful market, and in a market that may have high days on market, low inventory, etc.
Yeah. Andrew, I got a quick question on this. One of the things that I think is important is when you've got auto nurture in place, like we talked about before, you're going to get signals that people are engaging. They're opening, they're clicking, they're viewing. How are you seeing the most successful agents who use RealScout? What are they doing with that information? So, like, let's say I got a database of 3,000 people. I got all on auto nurture, and I've got people who are engaging with that content. Okay, what next? Like, what are you seeing the winners within your community really do well?
Yeah, so I think it depends on your archetype as an agent or as a team. If you are an agent and you have 20 contacts in your CRM, then I think it's easy to just see a live activity feed of what your clients are doing. You may, if you have a larger database, need a better system in place. RealScout can handle it, but you also might want to integrate RealScout with your existing CRM. So one of our mutual clients, Jimmy, Jason Wright at the Tim Smith Group, Coldwell Banker Realty, a great example of this. He lit up RealScout, and within 24 hours, he had 700 people interact with RealScout. That's not something that you can easily manage without the right systems in place. So he had connected it to his CRM and created rules where, hey, if somebody looks at a property 3 times in a row, that is a high intent client, high intent prospect. So I want to put them on a smart list, or I want to add them to an action plan so that we can automate some of the follow up. So there are systems in place that you can, there are systems you can put in place to help with that process. But the one thing that I want to make sure we get across the table here, if this activity is happening on other websites, on other national portals, you're not going to have any signal, right? So if success starts with a signal, you need to start with a signal to be able to manage it and to prioritize your pipeline.
I love that, Andrew. The other thing I would add there is in this market, one of the things I coach and train agents on every day, whether it's in person at live events or it's on webinars or it's online within these communities, is you've got to keep the sort of the main thing, which is the way in which you can succeed in this market and even thrive in this market. Because I would define this market in kind of 2 buckets, which is you've got chaos and you got consolidation. Tom Ferry and I talk a lot about this idea. It's for some of the market, they have no idea where their next customer is coming from. But for a small percentage, approximately 17% of the market, they know where the next customer is coming from because they have figured out a way to really dial this in. So my advice is keep the main thing, which is focus entirely on having more conversations every single day by using a good marketing system that can create that and a good marketing system that can nurture that. We're trying to do our best to help facilitate that, but ultimately, like, that is the thing that matters above all else. And so the stress and the anxiety you feel right now in your businesses, some of you are doing great, some of you are thriving, and you're like, yeah, Jimmy, I'm doing that. But those of you who aren't, who maybe feel like you're just getting punched in the face 24/7, I promise you, we had a client, Andrew, her name is Julie Woods. I love Julie Woods. So Julie Woods participated in the 100K program. And the 100K program that we rolled out a couple of years ago was in the Q4 of like 23. It was a brutal quarter. And we broke down, it was sort of the genesis of listing leads. We broke down a marketing system to help them make $100,000 in the next 100 days. Julie Woods followed it to the T. She generated $239,000 in GCI in 100 days. So what I'm telling you right now is that ultimately it comes down to put yourself in a position where you are focused on having more conversations. That is the only thing preventing you from achieving your goals or you blaming the market. So I hope this was helpful. Andrew, congrats on the podcast. I hope you guys take advantage of listening to that. I hope you all sign up for RealScout. And obviously you get a free trial to listing leads. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the members community. And when you join Listing Leads, real quick, make sure you join the live training. We're going to get you dialed in on this. Hopefully this is helpful, everyone. As always, Andrew, great to see you, my friend. And I appreciate everything you do for our industry. and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thanks, Jimmy. Enjoy Disney World.
That's right. Back to Mickey Mouse, everyone. Be well.
Bye, everyone.